Welcome to the MyWorkDrive Server setup video. To get started, what we would do first would be to go to the MyWorkDrive support site. You can get to the site by going to myworkdrive.com, click on support. You then bring us to that site and then take a look at the server setup guide. Let's just go over quickly a few prerequisites. The prerequisites are listed here right up front. The best server would be a simple 2012 R2 file server or standalone server. A virtual machine is fine. We support anything from 2008 R2 up through Windows Server 2016. If you do utilize 2008 R2, you will have to do a couple of extra reboots because of the .NET that gets installed. Ideally, you would be using a clean Windows 2012 R2 server. The server must be a member of Windows Active Directory domain. Ideally, it's just a member server, although we do support it, installing MyWorkDrive on a domain controller as long as there are minimum other products installed. We don't support installing MyWorkDrive on small business server, a server with Microsoft Exchange, alongside of other IIS components such as accounting software that have a lot of deep integration and .NET components that could potentially conflict with our software. Ideally, you'll also be using the Chrome browser. You can use Internet Explorer if the iEscape option is turned off, but Chrome works the best. So to get started, the first thing we're going to do is run the MyWorkDrive setup. I assume that you've already downloaded the product using our download page, which is available on our website just by signing up for a trial. So we'll start by running the setup, and we'll run that as administrator, and we'll just go through the flow here. And this will take about 5 to 10 minutes depending on the speed of the server that you have. Accept the agreement, and what this will do, it will install IIS components. It will configure the server to make it available as an IIS website, and then once that's done, then what we will be doing is pointing to the existing file shares or even local file folders that have NTFS permissions assigned to them and make those available to our users. What will end up happening is it'll install 3 websites. It'll be an admin site, which will be accessible from the server only, as well as the web client site, which is utilized for the end users to use our web file manager, as well as the URL for our MapDrive client or our mobile clients. So we'll just go ahead and skip forward here in a second and let this configuration complete. And the server setup has completed. We do require that you restart the server. I'm going to go ahead and restart this machine, and then we'll resume the video. And our setup has completed. As part of the completion of the setup, you'll notice that there's a MyWorkDrive control panel icon on the desktop. On that icon, there is a link to the internal website on the server itself for the administration panel. There's also a place here to upload diagnostics data to support should you need to access our services and being able to support the server. So we will click on the admin panel link and open the admin panel. We will then log on. We don't need to set up any accounts for MyWorkDrive. We're going to be using the existing Active Directory user that we're already logged into with. So we do need to make sure that we're logged on to the server as a domain administrator, and we're logged on the domain, not on the local server. So in fact, we even have a hint here: enter username domain /administrator. We also assume the current domain, so I'm just going to go ahead and put one in here. And then since this is under a trial and has not been completed in terms of the setup yet, we are starting with the startup wizard here. So we're going to do the easy setup wizard, and it'll ask us a few questions, and we'll be able to quickly get the server online with at least one share and make it available in the cloud. So the first thing we're going to want to do is set up a share. So this assumes that you already have some shares set up. I'm going to just create one and call it share. This would typically be the same as the shares that you would have in the office. And I believe I've got one here under the C drive, just for sample, though in the real world you'd put that on typically a different volume. And we'll put that in. And now we've got one share set up. We'll then need to decide who gets to access these files. This would be typically the same users and groups that are already assigned to this share that have NTFS permissions already. So the best thing to do would be to set up or utilize one of the existing groups. So for example, if you had a finance group, you would choose that. I'm going to just use domain users in this case because this would be like the Office generic file share. We also have an option next, now that we've set up at least one share, to make the server available in the cloud. So we have a unique feature within MyWorkDrive that allows you to utilize our relay to make the file server available. You can also skip this step and set it up using IIS. That's the nice thing about MyWorkDrive. Since we're using all Microsoft products, we're able to just leverage the existing tools, and that makes it easy for training in terms of your IT support team. So if you see that there's some websites already set up in here, if I go into here and look at web client and look at the bindings, you'll see that we have our required port that's there, but then you're able to add your own SSL certificate that you would purchase and bind that to the site, and then open up port 443 to make that server available in the cloud. I'm going to go ahead and just use our relay. There is a caveat that our relay, of course, since it's going through multiple relays, it is secure and it does go through Azure Service Bus and encrypted, but it does add a couple of extra hops. So if you're going to be using a lot of files that have a lot of remote access bandwidth needs, then the best is always to do a direct connection. But certainly for bringing up a trial, doing a proof of concept, or for a small firm that has that is very heavy and small, office type of documents, then the MyWorkDrive.net is a good option, and that's available even during the trial. Once the trial expires, then that would have to be renewed in order to be accessed and with using that method. So I'm just going to go ahead and punch in a number here, and then we'll see if it's available. As long as it's available, I'll be able to continue, and then the website will be https demo012.myworkdrive.net. And then the next step would be to enable Office 365 online editing. What that would do is, if your company has Office 365 subscriptions and users not only could view documents, but with the online editing enabled, then they'll be able to edit documents in Office 365 and still be able to save them back to the server. There's a support article you'll notice here that talks about how that's set up. That is a secure channel. No files are ever stored on MyWorkDrive. All you're doing is making the server available to Microsoft Office Online so that users can do the editing. And then the final couple of options, we do support displaying users' home drives that are configured within Active Directory out of the box. You can also set a file size maximum. So for example, if you've got limited bandwidth, then you might want to set 30 megs as an example, and then force users to use the local gigabit LAN when they're using files larger than that. So now go ahead and click Finish. You'll see that I'm told here that this is going to be the web address. I'll also get an email shortly that'll remind me that that's the address I'll be providing to my users. So then the users can then take that address and use that for accessing both our web file manager, pointing our map drive client, as well as our mobile client. Now we'll just go over a few of the settings and some of the features that we have within MyWorkDrive. You'll notice that the first tab would be folders, and that lists the one share that we already created. Within here we can then create additional shares. Just a note about shares. So typically the way that we're working is that we've got existing shares that are in place, or we've created them. MyWorkDrive uses the existing permissions that are set up within NTFS. All you're doing within MyWorkDrive is just saying these are the shares that users can access, on top of the fact that they already have NTFS permissions. So typically we would have a group in here, for example, like domain users, and we give them everything except full control because we don't want them taking ownership. And that's the kind of permission. When the users log on, they have to be a member of that group in order to access files. Even if you were to set up a share and the user's not a member of that group in NTFS, they might see the share, but they wouldn't see any files within them because of the way that we support the authentication and access-based enumeration within the file shares. If you're pointing across the network to another server, then of course you're going to have a share on that server, and we do support that. You would be putting in like //server1/share1, and of course you would give everyone full control for the permissions on the share. Adding permissions and restricting items using the shares is something that's a legacy feature that's been around since Windows 95, but the best practice is to not utilize file shares as a permissioning mechanism. You want to use the NTFS security. So in this area here is where we would then add additional shares. So for example, if we had a finance share, a project share, we would list all those out. We would put in the specific groups, and we could add individual users as well. We also support an ability to log all access. So log-ons, log-off, delete a file, view a file, change a file, upload, download. That information is all logged, and for compliance types of customers, that's a really important feature in order to be able to have that logging, and that is something that's required. Within settings, you'll notice that there's the licensing. Right now we're in a trial. Once you purchase, you would then punch in the code here and click Save. You can see here's that cloud connector that we configured earlier. It's currently turned on. This is where we would turn that off. We've already configured the rest of these areas. If needed, you were to have any issues, we could do some debug logging. We could also change our default language as well within the admin panel. Some of the advanced settings actually get into the features that are available to customers with an enterprise license. So we also support ADFS and Single Sign-On. ADFS Single Sign-On allows enterprises that have ADFS infrastructure in place to be able to point users to the unique URL for MyWorkDrive, and since they're already logged on with ADFS, they won't get prompted again for username and password. This needs to be understood, however, that single sign-on from the perspective of having to re-enter users from Active Directory, that is not needed because users will be accessing MyWorkDrive using the same username and password that they use when they log on in the office. So the ADFS is just an additional mechanism for larger firms to be able to have a shortcut to MyWorkDrive within, like, let's say Office 365, putting it right on the portal there, or a customized portal that they've created where users already been authenticated to that portal. They can then click on MyWorkDrive and they'll go in seamlessly without an additional prompt for log on. For security, we do allow customizing of the timeout on the browser client. Same thing with search. We offer the ability to do Windows desktop search, which I'll review in a moment. We support WebDAV in terms of being able to connect to the server, although it's not necessary because we have our own MapDrive client as well. And here is the Office 365 editing, which we've already enabled. We also support Duo two-factor authentication. There's an article on the support site that documents how to enable this feature. It is available for enterprises only. For customers that have multiple domains, you can also set the search order. Duo two-factor authentication is also available, and the information is on our support site. A 10-user trial can be signed up for Duo for free, and that allows you to add an additional two-factor authentication requirement for either our web client, our MapDrive, as well as our mobile client. For larger customers that have multiple domains within a forest, we also have the ability here to access and determine the order in which, when users are authenticated, what domains are reviewed first. We also have a new feature available called data loss prevention. So if I enable that feature, we have the option to globally prevent downloads. By enabling this feature, when we globally prevent downloads, that means on all shares nobody can download. However, I'm going to leave that feature turned on, but it'll still not enable globally prevent downloads, because once I've done that, I then can go back to the options here within a particular share, and then I can enable or disable download for a group. So you can see here that domain users not only has access to this share, but also has the option and the ability to be able to access and do downloads. So if I wanted to, I could ask. If I wanted to, I could also add other groups and users. For example, if I add this user here and then remove them from enable download, they'll be able to access the share, but they won't be able to download. And what that means effectively is within the web client, they'll be able to, within the web file manager, view and edit files online in Office 365 and right mouse click on PDF documents and view those in browser, but they won't have the option of sharing them externally or saving them and downloading them. So they can only save them back to the file server. The option to disable download can also be done at the entire share level. So if I uncheck this box now, users cannot download any users on this share. On enterprise search is another option that's available for customers that want to be able to have search. What's required is to install and add a role, the Windows Search role. So Enterprise Search is another option. Windows Search is also an integrated feature that we've tied into MyWorkDrive. In order to make it available to users so that when they're using the web file manager client, you'll need to install the Windows Search service. So that just by going to Server Manager, go to Features, you will find the Windows Search service. Once I've done that and it's finished installing, then I'll go to the control panel and go into the index options and make sure that I have the Windows Search service indexing those particular folders. This needs to be enabled on all file servers that MyWorkDrive points to. So both locally on the MyWorkDrive server, even if you don't have any shares on the server and you're just using MyWorkDrive as a front end, but also on any back-end file servers. So the Windows Search service is completed. I'll now go to the control panel, bring up indexing options, and then I'll add particular folders that I want to enable. So I've got a couple of shares here for this demo purpose. I would then add those shares. At this point, now those shares are made available for the indexing service, and then after a period of time of about 15 minutes, or when we log off and on of this server admin panel, you will notice the search status will change to enabled. And that completes our setup. You can see that our URL through our relay is available. We now can then log on. We have some additional videos on how to utilize the web file manager client, and thank you for taking a look at the MyWorkDrive server setup.